Hi, I'm Andrew Spieler.
And I'm Mary Hope Rennie.
And you're watching or listening to Behind the Sign, real stories from real estate.
Welcome back to Behind the Sign. Alan, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yep. So Alan, this is your first time on our podcast. Is that correct?
It is, yeah.
And we
I'm
started.
a little nervous.
I can tell. I can tell. But we started this podcast to pretty much peel back all the layers of what real estate is, why people got into real estate, all the elements of what the opportunities within real estate are, including an agent, title company, all of those things that involve real estate. And so we thought it would be really neat to have you and Bill and Mark as the owners join us and kind of talk back, because we're just celebrating our 20th anniversary at Keller Williams Metropolitan. And you were there at the very beginning.
I was, yeah.
You and Bill,
Yeah,
just the two of you.
Just the two of us and a laptop.
Yep, that's what we heard.
Yep.
So we want to kind of look back even before Keller Williams Metropolitan, and what we'd like to find out, and what we've been asking all of our guests, is what got you into the real estate business? Where did it start? And wherever that first place is, and what you did before that, and just a little bit about you.
Sure. Cool. Well, I was born in September. No, I'm going.
Well, it could be pertinent.
I would have to say, in thinking about that question, it really does go back to my childhood, and it's actually, I had a fantastic childhood, wonderful family, and my folks were both in real estate. So that was a little bit, and they owned businesses before that.
Okay.
So entrepreneurial, if you will.
Yeah.
Or,
were they owning properties or realtors?
They were
realtors.
Realtors.
Okay.
My mom managed an office in York, Maine, and my dad was the representative for the developers of Marco Island, and he had the rights for Maine and New Hampshire to bring folks down there. So he started going down there.
So it was in your blood.
70s, you know.
Yeah.
You weren't.
I was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it really did start with kind of the family environment, and it's kind of interesting because I know with the courses that we teach, and I've read a lot on, and that is, oftentimes we do things either because of or in spite of our I won't say our parents, but our upbringing, our experience.
Yep.
And so initially, when I started to become an adult, go to college and so forth, I really wasn't interested in real estate. And I felt like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to go into education and that kind of thing. So that's what my training was in. So I got my bachelor's degree in special education and counseling, and then I got a teaching job, and it was great. I went on and got my master's degree at the University of New Hampshire, and then I took a job as executive director of a county-wide agency in Stratford County, because the state of New Hampshire was sued for their treatment of adults, individuals with developmental disabilities. They were all at Laconia State School in an institution. And so the state was sued for their treatment, and community programs were developed through grants, and I had just gotten my master's degree, and I was selected as the executive director for the agency in Stratford County. So again, we kind of started with two people, and we ended up providing day programs, buying residences, renovating them, and making sure people could come. We moved about 87 people out of Laconia back to Stratford County, and then of course prevented a lot of people from having to go to Laconia
to have opportunities for them other places.
Locally. So that combination of things kind of got me between the family history, and then I saw how important real estate was even in a nonprofit environment.
Right.
and what kind of good that can create with people. And so that really kind of was the springboard, if you will, around real estate. I met the guy that owned the company my mother was the manager for, met him at a couple of Christmas parties, and he said, Alan, if you ever really want to go into real estate, I mean real estate,
real estate,
call me. And I thought, yeah, well, everything's going pretty well. And then a couple of things changed in the nonprofit world, and so I did talk with him, and so he did take a chance on me, because I'll tell you that he hired me as the manager of the new homes division for Norwood Real Estate, and I had this much experience, zero. And so what he said was just go out and list subdivisions and condominium projects, and this was back just after the Civil War, so that it was like 1985 is when I started.
Yep.
And the first property that I listed was Granite Hill, the condos at Granite Hills.
Really?
Yeah.
In Hooksett.
In Hooksett.
Yep.
And that was a big, back then that was a big project.
Mm-hmm.
385
Yeah.
units and 4 phases and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I gained entry into real estate, and that's what I did was new homes. And,
Yep.
And, basically prospected developers and builders and provided a good sales strategy and
Yep.
process to, and condos back then were kind of like new.
Yeah. It was a novelty.
Yeah, there was a lot of explaining that we had to do with people about how the fees work and what's the association. We're much more experienced with it now, but not then. So, so that was really my entree into it and what got me going. And then we ended up, I say we, I ended up working for Norwood, and then ended up hiring Bill a little bit later to manage one of the offices. And then he and I, the company was sold a couple of times. We joke about the fact that we never left the company. It's just
Everybody left.
The company's left
Everybody
us.
ran away from you guys.
And so we ended up working for GMAC. GMAC, on a national basis, decided to be in the brokerage business, so they bought the company that we worked for at the time, and I got moved down into Boston. I managed the center of Boston offices as well as the North Shore, and Bill was responsible for Bedford and also the other New Hampshire offices. And so we talked with a lot of people during that time period, and we came to the conclusion early around 2000, 2001, we were a bit concerned about the direction that the company was taking. And today the term agent centric is used a lot, and back then it wasn't, and it was really company centric. And what we observed, the direction that the company was going was not to the benefit of agents.
Right.
And so that's the thing that started to trouble us. And, Bill and I met a couple of times, and we decided that we were going to explore some other options, and we did, and we ended up making a commitment with KW.
Yeah. Yep. So you and Bill decided to leave your salaries.
Correct, yeah.
They weren't small salaries.
No.
And risked a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, and for me, because Bill had been in sales.
Right.
I'll call it, hand-to-hand combat kind
Right.
of sales.
Since he was 21.
Yeah, right. And so even though I was in real estate, it was still it was some salary and a lot of override, but salary.
Right.
And so we left high comp roles to start something with no comp.
But every risk has a calculated reward
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
So you saw something. What was it that you saw in starting Keller Williams in particular that you saw it was worth that risk to leave your job? And it was just the two of you, right? You didn't have agents. You didn't.
No, we didn't have.
It was
agents.
you two and the laptop, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I think the way we looked at it was that we had a kind of a view of how what agents were looking for, and we just felt like this was an alternative that would be able to supply that. And when I say supply
Right.
that, what is that? We were firm believers that people did real estate, did business with a company because of the agent. And it was a fairly drastic shift from, the company being the key thing. And the company does need to be involved,
Right,
obviously,
right.
and have standards and so forth. But really it comes down to the agent. And that's where we saw the biggest change, the biggest shift. And then, so we looked at it that the agents were really our customers, our clients. And then, of course, the customers and clients that they secure would be in a good spot as well. So we looked at it from the position of compensation,
Yep.
resources. And Bill and I had always been, do a lot of training in all of our roles in real estate, whether it was with GMAC or wherever.
Right.
So we know the value, or we felt we knew the value of education and how important that was. And I guess the other thing, the third leg of that stool was the fact that agents, we worked for the agents, as opposed to the agents working
Yep.
for us.
Yep.
And so that shift, that turn in terms of, it's all their money and they're paying us,
Right.
So long as we provide
The services
a
they
service
need.
and something that's meaningful and so forth. So that keeps you, a
Yeah.
little bit sharp, a little bit, aware and
Yep.
and so forth. And so those were the three kind of underpinnings that we really wanted to reinforce. And like you say, we knew and know a lot of people in real estate in Southern New Hampshire. And when we kind of announced it, which was in the beginning of December of 2004, everybody was saying, "Oh, you guys are going to kill it. This is going to be unbelievable."
Interesting.
And then nobody came.
It was quiet. Tapping.
It was very quiet.
Twiddling your
It was
thumbs a little
very
bit.
Quiet. And so, what we came to learn, it was an important lesson learned early, and that is most companies, whether it's real estate or any companies, most companies will grow during a time of downturn as opposed to upturn. And of course, everybody in 2004, 2005, we were in the process of climbing a great peak of the real estate business until 2007, 8.
Yep.
And, everyone figured, oh my gosh, you're starting a new company and the market's
It's going to go crazy. You're doing amazing.
This is amazing.
People can make tons of money.
Like, hey, yeah, you want to come over? And
nope, I'm fine here.
yeah, they were, and
Because
that's
they
the
didn't
thing.
need it.
We were kind of fighting the fact that, success is a funny thing. It can work for you,
Yeah.
and it can work against you. And when I say work against you, sometimes we get kind of complacent with success.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
Why change something that's working?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
probably what a lot of agents.
Absolutely. So it really wasn't until, and we didn't get no one because there was some very good who are still with us today.
We still have a lot of them with us today.
People who we called jumped off the dock with us, in those initial days, and which we appreciate tremendously because we, that's how we got started.
Yep.
The correction in 2008 and 2009
Yep.
really became the time period where we saw
It was because you hired me in 2009
Yeah.
that you saw that. I just like to throw that in.
Right, just in case you
I
forgot.
had no clue what I was doing. Had no clue I was getting in. And interestingly enough, thinking back at 2009, people said the exact opposite. What are you doing getting
Yeah.
into real estate right now?
Right.
Like, you can't sell anything.
Right.
And I think that was the best gift I had
Sure. Yeah.
coming in, because it wasn't easy, which I feel, and I was going to talk to you about what kind of you see the market trends, because we've seen a few shifts since then.
Sure.
Right now, we just kind of went on one of those soars in the 2020-21 boom.
Right.
Prices pretty much doubled
Right.
in some places.
Yeah.
Where do you see, so we've had sustained growth and success.
Mm-hmm.
And to be very honest, Keller Williams Metropolitan has been in the top 15% of profitability for the last 15 years, I think.
Right.
That's not a bad title to have
No.
in all of Keller Williams International.
Yeah.
And that's because of the work you guys put in. And yet you've had to go through a bunch of different markets.
Definitely.
And I know you've studied the market very closely. Where do you see this shift since 2020, 21, and where do you see it going, and how is that going to affect the real estate industry and maybe even our company?
Yeah. Well, it's, as you say, it's something that we look at constantly, and I call myself a student of the market.
Yeah.
I don't proclaim to know everything.
But it teaches us a lot.
It does, and just being aware and observing and making interpretations about things helps along that line. So there's been some industry changes, both in the real estate industry, and then of course there's the economic changes that we experience. And I think a lot of folks are baffled a little bit right now with what the relationship between interest rates and inflation and the
Lack
the
of
bond
inventory.
the
Yeah.
bond yields and lack of inventory, all those things. So those are unique circumstances that have come together in a single point in time.
Yep.
So where do I see it going? I think that we're going to see this year, 2025, is going to be very similar to 2024 in terms of activity. Now, I don't want you or anyone else to hear that as whatever we did or you did
Yep.
or I did or
We'll
they
work
did
now.
in 2024 is what is going to happen in 2025,
Yeah.
because I don't believe that.
Right.
I do believe that we already have lost a number of licensees who have moved on to a different field because of the shift,
Yeah.
which means if there's going to be the same number of transactions, there's going to be less agents who are going to be available to handle it. So not automatically, but number-wise, there'll be opportunities. And it's also a shift, not only in those market conditions, but it's also a shift for us relative to what we're bringing to the table. In the previous years, leading up until 2022 and 2023, it was definitely the commodity that we were providing was speed. And so how quickly we could list a property, how quickly we could get offers in, and the speed of things were lightning.
Yeah.
And so we had to be fast. We couldn't, and so that was what we brought and what was expected. And then when the shift came, now we start to see more of an emphasis on different skills. I used to say more of an emphasis on skills. There were still skills needed in the speed market.
You're so right.
But
Yeah.
But now
Absolutely.
It's different skills. And we had a run of about 12 to 13 years of year over year price increases, year over year unit increases in terms of sales. And so for 8, 10, 12 years, that was the environment. Now, to go back to something you said, since you started in a time that was more challenging, that's really a benefit.
Yeah.
And so all those folks that started in the last 10 to 12 years have not seen the different skill market
Right.
as yet.
Yep.
Well, maybe now we're into it a year and a half or so. So that means skills of negotiation, while they're still present all along the way,
Yeah.
It's going to be different
Yeah.
approaches.
Well, and I like that. The different approaches, the first word, and it was something different. I heard you say that I haven't thought of, that it's not necessarily, it wasn't a skill-based market. It's different skills. And that's the word pivot.
Right.
And we have the book Pivot Shift, because in market changes, it doesn't mean that it's bad or good. You need to pivot. And as human beings, we don't like change.
Right.
And those who are able to pivot in this market and be able to kind of look at their whole business, how they do business, and be okay that it might look different, my guess is those are the people who are going to kind of outlast and, win this market a
Right.
bit more.
Yeah. And that also is a commitment to, to being able to say, hey, I got to get better at this. Or,
Right.
I use this question probably too much, but I like it. And that is, who is the person I need to become
Yeah.
in order for me to be successful in this slice of time?
Right.
So who do I need to become? And if we put that challenge to ourselves in a genuine way, then we're gonna identify things that we need to get better at. And by the way, it's not just adding things.
Right.
There are going to be some things that we can drop.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's not like, oh, now I'm already working 80 hours. Now I got to work 180. Well, no, there may
To add
be-
one more marketing
Right.
piece, one more.
Yeah.
Well, and I think to that point, that will show, we'll say, oh, you're a good real estate agent, you're not, whatever. That's not it. It's who is willing to go find those places they need to get better and find the resources or that person or that class that can allow me to build that skill. I think so many times, and we've had several different agents come in here and interview.
Sure.
Introverts, extroverts, which is really neat to see. And it shows me that if you're not great in this part of it, first of all, you need to lean on your strengths, but you have to pivot the way you do things. And this is just another pivot
Yeah.
that we as agents, but also we as an industry and we as a company probably have to do things, which I think kind of what I wanted to also talk about, where do you see the next 5 years as Metropolitan, as a brokerage, as a franchise? Where do you see our company having to pivot, maybe? Because there is going to be a shift. We are seeing agents leaving the industry altogether. We do see agents, when there is a shift, moving brokerages because they're not seeing the success that they maybe saw in the last few years, and that's kind of our first response. Let's go find the answer and
Sure.
solution.
Yeah.
Where do you see that we need to focus on, and where you see the next 5 years?
Well, before I answer that, I just
Okay,
want to make
good.
a comment about pivoting, because it's such a life skill.
So true.
When I think about, and we do these classes, and I say, think about the times in your life that are significantly meaningful to you. Just pick 4 or 5. Close your eyes, pick 4 or 5, and what are the common characteristics of those times that are standouts for you in your mind, and 1,000%, it's times when people have made a pivot. It's maybe their personal life, maybe their career, maybe their maybe around health issues, and so that really pivoting is a life skill that really puts us in a position to be able to be nimble, to be able to embrace what occurs and turn it into something that works for you,
Right.
because of that, again, that open-mindedness. So I love
That's
I love
really a great.
pivoting,
Yep.
and just see it as it's a life skill that applies everywhere.
And in all history, it's not even
Right.
just in our industry. I think about even the history of our country,
Yeah,
the world.
anything.
It is those who are able to pivot that are successful in this world, and not successful just money wise, but those who are able to see a change and be able to embrace it in a way that actually makes things better.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, it requires that and also discipline. I mean, we have to
Yes.
be self-disciplined and have that why. Why am I doing this? Why is it
Right.
important to me? So, as far as the next 5 years are concerned, I think that there's going to be a continued shift, change, pivot in the marketplace, and as a result, we've got to be ready to pivot with it. And I do think that in the idea or in the context of brokerage, there is always going to be, I feel, a need for a real estate professional, someone who studies the market, is a student of the market, who can provide interpretations. Back when I started, the value proposition that real estate professionals had with consumers was we had the info, we had the data, we had the book, the MLS. Nobody knew what was on the market except us. Well, those days are gone.
Right.
And so now what we provide is interpretation of the information. It's how many homes are on the market, what are the prices, so forth, and what are the interpretations? Beyond necessarily, is it a ranch or is it it's really into more of those global issues of, what is going to happen with home appreciation, affordability, what is going to happen, what is going to be the impact of the insurance industry on properties that are in those susceptible areas. And it's not just Florida, by the way. I mean,
right.
Maine just redrew all of their flood maps. So those kinds of things are going to be, very predominant over the next 5 years. I see this year as being, like I say, fairly, not the same,
right,
but kind of the same.
You're not predicting a huge crash.
No.
No,
No.
If anything,
And and then after that, I think there will be a calming down around interest rates. The natural, normal rhythms of economics will start to be more of a factor again.
Yeah.
I mentioned, bond yields as being sort of a pain right now. But those things over the next 18 months or so, I believe, are going to sugar themselves out and be not back to the future by any stretch, but a more predictable set of circumstances.
Yeah.
So that we know, where our interest rates are and so forth. And let's remember, if I can just make this comment, when we talk about real estate, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of real estate? I mean, why does everybody want real estate if they don't have it? And why do everybody, what is it about real estate? Well, really the goal of real estate, of owning your home, is so that you pay for it when you are working, when you have income, so that when you don't have that high of an income any longer, you don't have that housing expense of either rent or a mortgage payment when your income might be lower. That's really the goal of home ownership. And so I don't see that changing dramatically in any way.
People still will need homes.
People will still need homes.
They have to live somewhere.
Right.
Right.
So I think that we will see that come back into what I'll call more reliable patterns. I do think, as far as the industry is concerned, I think we're going to see. We've already seen a lot of consumer benefit with teams, agents who work together in a collaborative way, so that the needs of the consumer can be met at a very high level. And we're big proponents of teams, because it's hard to be it's hard to be a solo agent.
Right. Some sort of leverage you need
Yeah.
to be able to
Yeah.
the longevity in this business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Alan, I'd love to. We've been asking pretty much every guest of ours, what would be your piece of advice to a brand new agent or someone thinking about getting into the real estate business? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think you mentioned something earlier, and I'll just go back for a second, and that is, I think it's important to know yourself first before we start to think about, what we're going to be doing, whether it's real estate or anything else. And so part of it is being aware of your own innate, approaches, skills, style, that kind of thing. And that doesn't mean that you either have to have this or you're out, or if you don't have that,
you have to be this to be a good agent.
Correct.
Right.
Because as you mentioned, you can basically supplement whatever you don't have or need to be at a different level with others, with leverage. So the advice I would give to people coming into real estate, I kind of make this joke, and that is, when I have classes, I say, how many of you got into real estate because you love houses? Everybody's hand goes up. Yeah. And how many of you got into real estate because you love people? And everybody loves people. And how many of you have been in the real estate business for more than a year? And people raise their hand, and I say, now how do you feel about people? The point is, real estate is a very intense people business. And intense doesn't mean difficult.
Right.
There will be challenges. And so the advice I would give to someone coming into real estate is, do you have the mindset of being able to be a problem solver and not have it take a toll on you when problems arise? Because that's who we are. We're problem solvers, needs analysis and problem solving. And so if we get a little shaky or we need some more experience with problem solving, then that would be a place to really
start
focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's having the ability to recognize needs, and then we know there's going to be a problem. That's why when I hear agents say, well, my value proposition is, I tell the sellers, it's going to be so smooth.
As most smooth as possible.
Never going to have any problems. Okay, we're going to hope for that. But
1 out of 100.
let's also let them know that when a bump comes along, that's why you're here. That's what you're trained for.
Well, and I think part of that, to go along with that, is to have the right people surrounding you, because you're not going to have all the answers.
Right.
You're our principal broker here.
Right.
You're here to help our agents, because there are going to be times they don't have the answer. And to go back just a little bit, when you said this is an intense people business, but prior to that you said you need to know yourself, know thyself. It's an intense knowing yourself business.
Oh, yeah.
Because before you can help other people, if you don't understand yourself, you're probably going to be combating yourself in this business. If you've convinced yourself that you love to make that you have to make cold calls to be successful in this business, and you've never picked up a phone before, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
You have to be very honest with yourself, and that takes some intensity. That takes some being uncomfortable with yourself, and I think that's where the gift of education is, because it's not all within us.
Right.
We have to lean on other people and surround yourself. Those people that surround us are going to be, those who will affect us the most. So,
we talked at the beginning about my initial background, and I got to tell you, it was the best. Special education training was the best training I received for real estate. and I joke about it and say, you know, I was educated in special education and counseling, and that's what qualifies me to own a real estate company today.
I'm still working on that.
And but you know, it's true. that is the important part, is problem solving and being comfortable in. And the other message I would say is, we think because we're the real estate professional that we have to have all the answers, when in fact what we have to have is all the questions. Because when we help people self-discover what they actually want and why, then it's not a, quote, salesy kind of thing. It's consulting, and it tends to be a great result. Yeah. So, you know, I tell people, have your questions ready, because that's is how you will help people self-discover what they actually are most interested in. That's
great. Well, thank you, Alan. That was wonderful, and to the next 20 years of Keller Williams Metropolitan.
Gosh, that'll be great.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Behind the Sign, Real Stories from Real Estate.
We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and gained a little insight into the world behind those for sale signs.
Today's episode was brought to you by Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, proudly serving New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts. A special thank you to our agents, leadership, and partners at KW Metro for their continued support.
And thanks to you, our amazing listeners and viewers. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Leave us a review or comment. We love hearing your feedback, and it helps more people discover the show.
And if you have a real estate story you'd like to share, or a question you want answered on a future episode, reach out to us at metro.kw.com or find us on Instagram, handle @KWMetroNH.
Until next time, we'll see you
behind the sign.